small thing, classroom recordings. Then they started with distributing the recordings to their students. And now they've gone ahead on a path where they are launching online courses and launching the courses to the public. Entrepreneurship is all about keeping a small idea, following it. Don't think about it's $1 billion idea or not. You believe in that idea, take small initiatives to pursue it, and gradually that idea can become big. In fact, IFIM has also adopted this technology and have started small. Now they are using it to teach students across campuses. Second point I would like to mention about some of the things that I have learned as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is all about being nimble, adopting innovation. I personally believe I meet 100 plus academicians every year, closely interact with them, and one of the belief that there's a slight resistance to change. Though at the top, when I'm meeting the leaders, they are quite open, but we have to work very closely with teachers, because teachers are the one who are actually using our solution. So when I'm meeting the teachers, there's a huge resistance to change. And there are only few teachers, let's say 5% or 10%, who are open towards this change. So empower those teachers, enable those teachers to innovate, to create small cells of entrepreneurship, create small projects, small initiatives, which one successful,
30 seconds.
Yeah, one successful can be imbibed by others. So those are some of the points that I wanted to make. I think colleges will have to change in incremental lots and adopt both technology as well as entrepreneurship principles. Thanks.
Thanks for calling me here. You know, when people talk about future of education, somewhere along the line, I'll tell you my own example of when we were launching Career 360, and Dr. Manmohan Singh was the one who was launching the magazine. And the magazine is meant to advise the student of what to do next. And Dr. Singh, in his right jest, talks of how you must actually launch a magazine to talk to the education institutions to practice what they preach. Somewhere along the line, I think while we are talking about what the responsibility of the government is, what the responsibility of the student is, the parent is and all, are we missing the big trick of trying to understand what is expected of us? The future of education is secure as long as we build a great nation, a great society, and a great world. Are we, in a sense, enabling that to happen? Are we as transparent as what we expect the world to be? Are we as clean and honest as we teach or preach the students to be? And these are larger questions. Somewhere along the line, I think we have moved beyond the goalpost, and we are sitting on this side of the goalpost and saying that's how the world must behave with us. Because there's one fact, you know, while we talk about education and education has to be private, the fact is education is already private. 2016, we have about 800 universities, about 380 of them are private, which is just about 100, about even 15 years back. And by 2019, you'll have more private universities than government universities, just 3 years away. Then the other stat, as of now, we have about 36,000 colleges in the country. 26,000 colleges are private colleges affiliated to a government university. What I'm trying to say is that about 80 to 90% students are going through the private education space, though the examination might be by a public university or a private university. So 80 to 90% students are going through a private space. Having got what we wanted, even without demanding for it. Remember, we were all a public education space, you know, not for profit and so on and so forth. Have we lived up to the expectation of the society which empowered us so much to ensure that the promise that we make to the student, that he'll be a great citizen, he'll have value addition, he'll have a decent job, or he'll be wise enough to find a job for himself or create a job for himself? Somewhere along the line, I do personally think that while we talk about future of education, I think we need to introspect of whether those things are on the right track. You know, recently I went to a university in north of India, and that man said, and he's a VC, mind you, and he said, listen, Mahesh, everything is fine. I don't mind students not coming to the classroom, but I have so many hostel rooms to take care of. Now, if we were to deal with education with that kind of a object, that I have 1,000 rooms that I have to take care of, and I've created the infrastructure for 1,000 rooms, and I need to fill up those 1,000. Very few people, and I'm so glad that I met a few people here who really, really are passionate about what they do and so on and so forth. But it is more important for the Vice Chancellor to talk about how much faculty he needs to have and ensure that that faculty is there before they start a course than the other way around. But we seem to be doing the entire thing in a different cycle altogether. It starts with admission and ends with faculty. It doesn't start with faculty and end with the student. And unless we as edupreneurs start dealing with this subject with a seriousness where we talk about ourselves and where we are failing, the future of education is very, very good. I don't have any doubts about that, because the student will still milk out everything that he possibly can from all of us. But the effort, impact, and the resources that have to be deployed aren't there. Because of which we end up creating fantastic cells which don't lead to anything beyond a point. So these are two things. I think one, as a future of education, we need to introspect more than anything else. We shouldn't be looking at what the world hasn't done to us, what the government hasn't done to us, what the student hasn't done to us, what the parent hasn't done to us, and talk about whether we have done what we are supposed to do. That's the first part of the question, because it's rarely asked in these kind of forums. And I don't mind, I'm a dissenter in that sense. And two, whether we are creating job seekers or whether we are actually empowering job creators is something that, as a question that we need to ask ourselves. As long as we have an answer for both these questions, future of education is safe. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. It's always a pleasure to talk when your professors are here. So two of my professors are here, Sugan sir and Bagli sir are here. I'm sure they'll be able to relate to whatever I speak now, because they have seen through my journey. And I was very delighted about this topic about entrepreneurship and education. I said that we should talk about entrepreneurship and education, because why should we alone suffer? Let all the universities suffer for it. So I also represent Jain University. I'm going to talk about how we have set up the entire cell in Jain University and what goes into actually building entrepreneurship and education. I won't talk about education because you guys are the stalwarts of education. Just wanted to give you a quick snapshot. I started my journey in 2004. I was the first incubatee or entrepreneur in Jain. Currently we have around 100 entrepreneurs. I head the entire factory called Entrepreneurship Factory. If you see that I've been getting some gray hair here, it's because entrepreneurship is not easy. Now why do I say that? Let me explain to you. So our journey started in 2001 when nobody was talking about entrepreneurship. It all starts with the leader. Actually, if the leader, chairman, the CEO, the head, the dean, if he's entrepreneurial in nature, everything else boils down. So ultimately, if a university is actually setting up an education entrepreneurship cell, for the namesake, it doesn't make sense. For example, I have traveled around almost entire India in terms of all the e-sales possible, from IITs to everybody. But I feel there's a miss somewhere, is that the involvement is important. How involved are you as a leader? How involved is the management into the system? And how keen are we to support them? For example, in the JUIC, the Jain Incubation Center, what we run, basically we promote co-creation. The toughest of entrepreneurship. Incubation is the easiest one, to be very frank. You give you a space, you give some mentoring, and they're fine to go. Co-creation is something where you actually eat, drink, sleep, cry, work with them, toil with them, help them arrange funds, you arrange funds for them, etc., etc. So my journey started with being the first entrepreneur, and then we have seen around 100 plus entrepreneurs. In fact, just coming before this place, we have launched our 50th venture, and all are doing fantastically well. Now, I want to share with you a few areas why these companies have excelled. In the first 4 years, our mortality rate was almost 50%. That means 100 companies, if you incubate, 50 used to die. They require moral support. Most of the ventures fail not because they couldn't do it, but because when they were failing, they couldn't see who else was failing in their area or in their age group or in their industry. So we said that get all the companies together and put into a factory called Entrepreneurship Factory. We put all these guys into the Entrepreneurship Factory. We said that we'll give you all the shared services provided here. We said that all the entrepreneurs who are here, we're actually going to be your moral support. So one is the moral infrastructure, very, very important. Second is the network infrastructure. We say that network is important. Go and network in the market. How are you going to network in the market? It will take at least 10 years to actually know somebody and actually do business out of him. In fact, it will take much more sometimes just to build the trust. In that scenario, how are you going to build the trust? So we said that if we have 100 entrepreneurs here, 50 companies inside it, each company will have at least 2,000 customers, and if each shares those customers with each other, we are talking about a big number, and you don't need to actually do marketing outside. Infrastructure. Third, It's also important to know that shared services support is very important. For example, most of the times when I was building the organization, I was doing my HR, PR, finance, marketing, raising fund, etc., etc. You don't have to do all those things. So third part of this is shared services. And the fourth important element is how are you plugging along with them in their journey? So what I'm realizing in what we are foreseeing in the education industry is that entrepreneurship is going to play a very, very major role. In Jane, it has phenomenally changed the entire landscape. For example, the LMS what Jane uses is actually started by an entrepreneur. Look at GE model, you have a GE international education system, which is actually helping all the GE companies. You look at any education, any system in the entire world, it is the education which supports the entrepreneurial ventures. At the same time, the time will come for the entrepreneurial ventures to pay back to the education system. So that's how I am looking at, I am foreseeing that if you are not able to integrate education, entrepreneurship into education, you will not be able to create innovation. You'll only be keep doing transactions, but it will not be a transformation. Come what may, you do whatever it is, until the entrepreneurship blends with education, you will not be able to create transformation. Thank you, and we'll see you in the panel.
It went on a slope.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I would request Mahesh to be the timekeeper for my session so that I don't violate it. So this is my interpretation. You know, there was I was remembering this nice little story about there was this Pakistani poet called Habib Jalib. When Bhutto was hanged and Zia-ul-Haq became the ruler, there was this race among intellectuals to kind of sing paeans of greatness about the new ruler of the country. In that context, Habib Jalib said, "Zulmat ko Zia, Sar ko Sabah, Bande ko Khuda kya kehna." He played with the word Zia. Zia in Urdu means light. Zulmat means darkness. He was saying that, you know, so that was his interpretation of Zia. This is my interpretation of edupreneurship, which was given to me, because, you know, as you know, edupreneurship could be looked at as education that leads to entrepreneurship. That could be one interpretation. The other could be that to become an entrepreneur in the realm of education. As of now, most of the interpretations are of the latter, where they are talking about he's an entrepreneur, and if he's an entrepreneur in education, they call it as edupreneur. But that would have meant we are talking to about 30 people in the country of 1.25 billion. So we said that we need to rubbish that. We will kind of keep it broad for a session like this. So let me kind of go ahead and share just a few thoughts. These are very discrete. You can connect them as per your realities. Next slide, please. You know, one of the arguments about the future that I always have is that 33% of the future already is in this room. Because there are some of us who disagree with the present and who are authoring the future, and we are coping with the gap between taking the present with us because we are already anchored in 2019 or 2020. Then there are some of us who are very realists, who are anchored in today, and we are some of us who are reluctant, we'll join the today tomorrow. But I'll kind of just focus on facts to be able to make some points. You know, these are all third-party research figures that you can see. It says that 90% of the new GDP will be contributed by the youth who are going to be under 25 years of age. What it means is that large number of them are going to be in campuses, and if somebody is doing an MTech or a PhD, he is absolutely edging past this thing. And if you read research after research, it says that 6 out of 10 most sought after jobs of 2016 did not exist in 2010. We know it anecdotally. This is true. So as leaders of education, we know that our task is cut out. The second important thing is that, you know, you and I, especially those of us who are beyond 40, we need to be a little bit more humble about our knowledge, because 75% of this new GDP is going to be in areas, in products and services that are not known today. And we use a bunch of them. Paytm was not known 5 years ago. Ola was not known 5 years ago. We are like too much in reality to deny such truths. Next slide, please. So this has been covered. I'll come to it. Even Mahesh was making a reference to it, where job seeking versus job creation, which is which occupies greater, rutba on campus or even in our minds is an important thing. Next slide, please. The important thing is that if we agree that the first two slides are important, and that which means that we have on our campuses thousands of youngsters, even if 1% or 2% that you are referring to, if those are entrepreneurial, and an entrepreneur is not a know-all. We know that, we've been entrepreneurs for long enough, and there are some places where I'm miserable, which means I need to build a team. So if a 2% works on an idea and they co-opt their friends, the batchmates, juniors, to help them in areas where they are weak, we're talking about 4 to 6% of the campus can be engaged in a job of creation on campus. All we need to do is to give the right environment. So the question is, what do I celebrate more on campus? Mind you, I'm not at all saying that we should push everybody to become an entrepreneur. Some of us are great intrapreneurs. We should continue to be true to what is true to the student or the child or the youth. Second is, do I, as a policymaker on my campus, create time and space for creativity? Which means, for instance, Rajiv Sangal at IIT BHU, which is so-called Sarkari University, has created room for engineering students right from semester 5, 6, 7 to pursue entrepreneurship, to pursue knowledge creation, and given weightage to it. That is something that is in your hands. Next slide, please. Take job a million times, but it will not take away my wisdom, my mentorship, and these are all facts that are right now on the ground. I'm not predicting anything. It says that 75% of the students who use tablets prefer them over textbooks. These are researched reports by some noted agency. 46% of college students take at least one online course today as we speak. They may not be taking a course on your campus, elsewhere they would be doing, and so on. It says roughly by 2019, half of all college students will be online. I just picked it up and tell you that the future is already here. The choice is, what do we do? Next slide, please. In the rooms that I am a part of, top government agencies, top corporates, in order to grow their business, in order to grow their own agenda, a lot of them are creating these mightily valuable assets which all the education institutions can benefit from. We don't have too much time. If we have time, I'll give you a couple of examples, but these includes the governments, state governments, central governments in India, large universities, and large corporates. Apple wants to grow from a 2 billion to a 10 billion in 4 years, and Tim Cook has come and announced it and gone. They are saying that, can we put up 2,500 courses online which you can plug and play as a university. Don't spend your 4 crores trying to build it up. Those kinds of things are coming. Just we should keep our eyes and ears open. Next one, please. The entire paradigm is shifting. This is a snapshot of a university which is currently servicing over 2.5 lakh students. It's a government university. And this is a snapshot from there, built by an entrepreneur like what Abdul was mentioning. Not a big company. An entrepreneurial company was looking for a toehold or a foothold. He was invited. They were asked to do it, and it's being delivered to all their management students across board. Next slide, please. So one of the assertions that I'm making about the future is that we will continue to have to value. Mahesh, am I okay? We need to continue to value our time as mentors. All of us, many of us are also teachers, but a lot of our intelligences can be taken away by machines, thus releasing our time to do a higher order work. And you know that the QS rankings, the rankings of the universities, all of those, at a highest level, there has to be a faculty or a dean who is going to anchor that. That will continue to be valuable, but doing all the admin work, machines will do. I will not go too much into the details of this. You know this. So the question really is that, is the future really so mysterious that I need to imagine sitting in a room, or do I keep my eyes and ears open and then say that, wow, this is something that's happening, this is something that I can implement, whether it agrees or disagrees with the current play, it's purely incidental. But if there is a $2 trillion economy and a $150 billion education economy, and if it's not going to be a thought leader in this, then the guys who think so are going to be left behind and not the entire set of players who are anchoring this $150 billion play. Thank you very much. So, switching my hats, since the topic is entrepreneurship, I would pose one specific questions to each of the three speakers and ask them to share with us if entrepreneurship is truly a play that educational institutions must espouse, must anchor and drive. In your judgment, in your wisdom, what are the two things that you would leave as a suggestion to this eminent group of thought leading audience? Mahesh?
No, I think it starts slightly from the learning part of it and then goes to the entrepreneurship. Because somewhere along the line, I do think that when you start teaching the student, which says that survival of the fittest and maximization of profit and so on and so forth, you actually, and then you get into funding and VC and valuations and all, there is, you actually are, creating a universe which exists for people on the fingertips. It doesn't exist for everyone. And so one of my advice to anyone who's talking about incubation centers and entrepreneurship cells is to bring that reality check down to the student, to say that, listen, you're creating a business, and if the business works, there will be great valuation. It's not the other way around. Whereas much of the teaching, if it goes to valuations and all, you're bound to have a serious problem in your hand. And two, when you deal with incubation centers and entrepreneurship centers, just ensure that you don't need to, the problem is reality check always. I do notice a lot of you calling the biggest doyens of the industry, and the students don't feel and touch them. Though the stories might be real, they're very few and far in between. You need to call people who have passed out from your own institute 10 years back and how they're doing decently well. They may not be billionaires, they might not be, rocking the stock markets. But if you get people who the student can feel and touch and say, I can be like him because he was just like me 10 years back, it is much more closer to, entrepreneurship. Why do you think, a mechanical engineer who starts a, car mechanic shop, and from one shop he goes to 10 units over the last 10 years because he kept expanding and became a, authorized mechanic for a Benz or whatever, Maruti, is still a great entrepreneur in himself than anything else. Someone who started a restaurant and, expanded to 10 chains, 10 restaurants across the city and employs 500 people is a great entrepreneur in himself. So we need to start getting closer to what entrepreneurship is than living in that bubble where only Dr. Narayan Murthy or Dr. Azim Premji would be the people who will talk about entrepreneurship, because that, it requires every step to be the correct step and every luck to be striking at the right point and so on and so forth. Bring people who the students can feel, touch and say, I can be like him because he was like me 10 years back. And that for me works far, far better.
Thank you, Mahesh.
I feel that there's no choice to educational institutions. You have to bring in entrepreneurship in the entire game. The reason is, any educational institution is a long-term game, 20, 30, 40 years. And in this entire scenario, what happens is that we get into the entire system of, rugged system of rote learning, etc., etc. And even the resources also, the academician, anybody else, will also have become used to the system. And even if you look at the UGC norms also, it's like that only. In that situation, these entrepreneurial ventures, these entrepreneurship companies, these entrepreneurs are the ones who bring in the new bug of new ideas, new ways of doing things. They bring in that energy, the activity, the required direction for the education institution if taken properly. So that is point one. There's no choice, you have to do it. Point two, what Mahesh was saying, I just want to extend it from there. You'll have to get the entire ecosystem now. The youngsters today know exactly what they want to do. During my time, maybe around 10, 12, 13 years back, we were still wondering what we are supposed to do, etc., etc. We're exploring. But today's youngsters actually know what they want to do. All they need is a good ecosystem. If they want to actually take a step forward, they should have support system at every level. So educational institutions need to draw a larger framework as to how they are going to help them out in the entire ecosystem, taking from the clue of what Mahesh said in terms of getting them alumni, getting them corporate honchos, getting them guys who have failed. And in fact, this is what we should do. We should set up an entire library or an institution to say how people have failed in the past. I think that is going to add more value than how people have passed or how many people have succeeded. Because in India, we don't celebrate failures. If you go abroad, if I say that I have started 3 ventures and have failed in it,